Zwift Academy is where some of the top riders come to race, but can this 16-year-old manage to beat some of the top riders on Zwift? Hey Zwifters, and welcome back to another Zwift racing video. And today we're providing some commentary and analysis over this rider's race, and this is Marcel Koo from Team Hexagon. He is a 16-year-old Taiwanese rider who has decided to send in his footage so that I can review it and provide some tips and tricks for those of you watching. Marcel is a highly experienced 16-year-old Zwifter who is currently on level 46, which is pretty impressive for somebody his age. He is in category A, and one day he aims to try to win Zwift Academy Road, which the race he's currently racing in is part of. So here you can see that the race is already extremely strung out. Marcel did not start off with an extremely high power number, and I know he certainly was capable of doing much more watts, but he decided to conserve his energy and save it for a bit later. So you can see that now the group is just starting to come together. We got 71 riders in this race number 1 on Rolling Highlands. This is part of the Zwift Academy series, as I said earlier, and you can see that just how quickly these category A riders are moving, and there are some pretty notable names here. Like right below Marcel, you can see C. Von Folsack, and he is an extremely accomplished rider outdoors, and he actually rides professionally. So that's just someone to keep an eye out for, because you can see that he is a professional, and he's not the only professional in this race. There's certainly other really high status Zwift racers in this race, making it a really fun competition to race in and extremely fast and competitive. So you can see the group is still pretty strung out, but riders are starting to bunch together, which is always good to see, especially if you are Marcel. You're wanting things to settle down a bit so that you can really get into a rhythm and get a feel for the race. And you can see here that there's a nice bunch going now in a solid group of around 70 riders, which is great for a Category A race. So fast forward to a bit more interesting of a part of the race. You can see that riders are getting a little bit strung out. There are a few attacks off the front, but nothing is going to stick because they have not hit that main climb yet, which we're about to see right here. And you can see Marcel really moves up towards the front of the group, which is extremely good positioning because you don't want to be caught off the back here. You can see the riders are already getting really strung out. So being in the front here and being able to draft off those top riders is extremely crucial. So great job to Marcel for doing that. And that's really helping him to stick with these top riders, but he probably could have put in quite a bit more power once those riders started to pass him, so he could really lock into the draft and just surf the wheels up this climb rather than falling slightly back, then having to put in a bigger surge to catch back up. You can see that he does use his drafting boost, so he can use it, kind of get a double power up. He uses it right before he reaches the arch, so he does have 2 power ups in hand at the moment, which is certainly helping him on this descent. And he is a bit of a heavier rider, so he does have an advantage on these downhills, unlike most junior riders. Also, if you are enjoying this video, please smash that like, subscribe button, and with that, let's continue on with the video. You can see he continues to move up nicely, and he is now in the top 5, which is extremely good considering the rest of the race is very strung out and it's really chaotic behind him. You can see that on the mini-map, everyone is really strung out. There's probably 4 or 5 groups out on the road right now, and you do not want to be in one of those chase groups because those groups are working a lot harder than this lead group, who are really just chilling and allowing those riders to catch back up, aside from a few minor attacks and pulls at the front to keep the pace high. The race does start to come back together, and you can really expect to see some counterattacks in high-level racing such as Category A, so you are certainly going to see some of those throughout this race when riders do come back together, because that is always a great time to cause a split in a Zwift race, especially in such a high level of racing where you do have that extra power. You're not in zone 4 to zone 5 for the entire race. You actually have time to settle down and cool the breathing down before harder efforts. So in this next segment, you do see that he does get a bit separated, so a bit of a poor positioning job by Marcel, but he is able to comfortably catch back up to the group and get back into those lead riders. You can see that with just a bit of a power surge, he's able to get right back nicely in the middle of the group where he wants to be. So overall, not too much damage, but he could have saved some energy by hopping on to the group a bit earlier rather than leaving it to the last moment where there really is some separation between him and lead group. While the group never really does settle down in Category A, it got about as close as it does to settling down in this next section here. You can see that he is able to comfortably hold 4 to 5 watts per kilo, just sitting in the wheels and surfing those wheels, but he could have probably used his draft power up as he went through that arch, because you can get either a feather power up or a draft boost in this race. So no matter what power up he gets, there is no harm done. Both are solid power ups for this course. Now we go on to a much more interesting part of the course, which is where there's some steep climbs and tons of attacks. You can see everyone is using their feather power-ups, trying to put in as much power as they can, as there's a pretty solid gap opening up between that lead rider and the rest of the group, and there are a bunch of others chasing. So this is a really crucial moment in the race, and saving that draft power-up really allowed him to lock onto those wheels and be able to relax when everyone else is really chasing frantically, which is something that he did very great. But you saw that he did get kind of shot out the back there once the group caught up to him, so a bit of an earlier reaction time would have probably helped him save a few watts there, but overall nothing major. You can see just in the front how brutal of a race Category A is, because in the front they're pushing 7 to 8 watts per kilo, trying to make this attack stick as they go through this next climb, and that is the Breakaway Bray climb, which is featured in the UCI World Championships. So this climb is no joke. You can see that everyone is attacking hard up this climb, but the chase group really isn't making a massive effort to try to catch the leaders, and this is a really crucial moment in the race, because if the riders don't act now, they're really not going to catch those lead riders unless they really work on the flats, which you don't really see often on Zwift because nobody likes to take pulls. It's sort of a game of cat and mouse for a long time in Zwift races. So you can see the gap opened up very quickly to around 13 to 15 seconds, and that just shows you how much more tactical Category A races can be than other races such as Category B or Category C or Category D. And you can see that rider trying to bridge that gap, and nobody really chases. And normally in Category B or C races, you'd see the whole group just swarm them and just follow them, and that rider would eventually give up, and the big swarm of 70 or so riders would normally catch that lead rider. Versus in Category A, everyone is in a smaller group, and it's a much more thinned out group, and it's really a group of 7 riders contending for these final few top 10 slots. So as this group of 5 or so makes their way through the rest of the course, nobody's really taking pulls. It's pretty unorganized, and there isn't a whole lot of work being done at the front in order to reel those riders back. They're sort of doing just enough to keep the gap at bay, so it's not growing rapidly, but it's also not coming back. So you can see here that the gap is around 45 seconds now, 20 to 45 seconds, because the lead group is getting pretty strung out at this point. So they can really pick off some riders if they were to start all working together, doing some team time trialing in this part of the course, but nobody really steps up to do that in this race, which just goes to show like how the dynamic of Zwift racing can be pretty different from real life Zwifting. Whereas in real life riding, most riders would be taking pulls at the front, knowing that they can reel those riders back and really work together. And that's one of the things that's a downside to Zwift racing, is that there's no real verbal communication unless you're on Discord or something. But you can see here Marcel putting in a massive attack here, just trying to move the group forward. I'm not sure if it's necessarily an attack, but more of an surge and a wake-up call to the other riders to tell them that it's time to go and it's time to get working here, and it's time to bring up the pace, because they can catch those other riders up ahead in order to grab some higher spots in the top 10. So you can see here that Marcel's heart rate is slowly creeping up to the 190s, which is getting into that zone where it's sort of uncomfortable for him, I'm pretty sure. And you can see here that he's sort of bringing it down as they make their way through these little downhill sections, which is great, especially if you were trying to gear up for the sprint. And that's one of the things that I normally try to do when I'm racing, is that you really just want to relax for a bit and cool yourself down before that finishing sprint in order to be as prepared as possible. 0.6 kilometers left in this race, and everyone just starts to go. It's chaos as it is a Category A race. Most of these riders have the power in order to sustain that kind of power for the full minute or so of this climb, likely less because these are Category A riders. You can see Marcel does turn on his featherweight and he does start to go, but I'd say that putting a higher burst of power in as soon as he turned that power up on would have done a lot of damage, because his watts per kilo would have shot from 8 to around 13 if he just bursted the power right when you turn the power up on. And that's something that I like to do, and that really allows your avatar to accelerate pretty quickly. And I think that could have given him the edge in that finishing sprint to really help him snag that solid top 10 spot. However, he does end up with an extremely solid finish of 10th place, rounding out that top 10 finish. And you can see that here that he was just 0.4 of a second away from the next rider. Overall, he did have some places where he could have improved and saved some watts, but if you take a look at his power compared to the rest of the riders, he was doing extremely well compared to them, averaging 4.6 watts per kilo, whereas mostly others were over 5 and some even into the 6s in the lead groups. And that just goes to show how brutal Category A racing is. If you enjoyed this video, please smash that like and subscribe button, and let me know in the comment section below if you are participating in these Zwift Academy events. And that's pretty much it, everyone. Thank you for watching, and ride on. See you all next time.